welcome back to this month's Fab Click Fabrics Sew Along using Ellie and Mac's Summer Romper. Today we have three main tasks on the schedule. We are going to add pockets to our pants if you're using pockets. We are going to assemble our pants and we are going to hem our pants. I'm using pockets, so I'll have all three tasks for today. If you're not doing pockets, you only got two, and it makes your sewing time that much shorter. Today is pretty much going to be the same no matter if you are doing the romper version like me or if you're doing the two-piece version like Sarah. For the most part today, everyone's going to be doing the same thing. The only difference is like shorts versus pants. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do and that you'll need to grab is your front pant and your pocket liner. So I have mine right here, and I'm still going to be at my serger since the seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so we have our front lining pieces with our pant front, and on the pant front you either cut on the romper line or on the two-piece line. So I have my pant front here, and you're just going to put right sides together. Matching up that angled side. Oops. My bad. You're going to match up the angled side. And then I'm going to sew that at 1/4 of an inch. Because this is going to go to the inside of my pocket. Now what you can also do, I keep some elastic over here. You can always add elastic to this seam. It can help with ensuring that your pocket has a little bit more stability versus, you know, you have on pants pockets and the pocket part of it just be hanging or sagging. This will help kind of keep it taut, so you don't have that issue. It's definitely optional if you decide to do it and you want to get something that is, for this particular pattern, 1/4 of an inch. If you use a different pattern, because you can of course do this for any pattern that has pockets, you want to get an elastic that is the same width as your seam allowance. I am I'm turning my knife off so that I don't accidentally cut the elastic that I'm also stitching into the seam allowance. Yeah, it's off. Okay. Now you do not stretch the elastic at all. You just nicely lay. You can hold the back side to kind of keep it taut, but you don't want to stretch the elastic in any way. Now this is just something that, I don't even remember where I learned this, but it's just something that I've been doing with jumpsuits, whether it's a knit or a woven jumpsuit, with my pants. Not necessarily trousers, like work type pants that I make, but especially for any type of jumpsuit, because having the bodice with the bottom, and especially for me, where my jumpsuits have to do a lot of work. I don't want any undue stress on my jumpsuits. OMG. Y'all, I broke my needle. Well, how about that? All right, well, that would explain why my fourth serger thread is not in there. So let me fix this real quick and we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I had to fix that real quick. What was that? Oh. All right. Sorry, gotta throw away those broken needles. So on the seam that I just did, I sewed my elastic into that seam. So now it just gives it a little bit more structure and it's hidden. And so now there it is. And it just gives it a little bit more stability to that pocket and to that edge, as you can see here. And then you can always understitch, which I do plan on doing as well. All right, so we're going to do the same thing to our other pocket. Make sure to stretch out your elastic before you actually put it in anything. Just want to stretch it a little bit. And we are going to take the angled side and match that up. Pocket lining to the front of the pocket. That's this one. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Yeah, I can't keep up with this elastic. The doggone saved my life. Keeps trying to run away. It is running away from me. Do you not want to help me with my garment today? All right. And we're going to do the same thing. Make sure you do not stretch that elastic as you sew it. It's there for stability. It's not there to gather or anything like that. So leave it there. Don't stretch. We're using light hands, light fingers as we sew. So here you can see kind of the serged edge with my elastic. There's no elastic that's like flipping off or anything. It is completely within my seam allowance. So I'm going to cut off my elastic and I'm going to put it in my little bin for the next time I will need her. And voila. Now what I like to do is I will actually take this over to the ironing board to press it just a little bit, just so that when I understitch on my sewing machine, it'll be nice and laying flat. Everything is where it needs to be. And I will understitch this using a zigzag stretch stitch. I won't use a lightning stitch. It doesn't need that much stretch. I'll use a normal zigzag stitch. Came back from the ironing board. So as you can see, my my seam has been pressed with my pocket liner to the inside. Now in the directions, it tells you to top stitch from the front your pocket lining to your front pants. Instead, what I'm going to do is understitch. which, similar to ironing, it is one of the secret gems when it comes to sewing. So when you understitch, you're going to place your pocket lining, or, and this is with any garment, you're going to place your pocket to one side, your pant is on the other, and the seam allowance that you just sewed together, you're going to push that towards the pocket side, and you're going to push that when you press it. When you press it, most instructions will tell you to press towards the pocket. So you're going to make sure your seam allowance is pointing towards your pocket, which mine is. My pocket is on this side. And then you're going to stitch your seam allowance to that pocket. And by stitching the seam allowance to the pocket, you are basically forcing the pocket to stay where it's supposed to stay, so it doesn't flop out. You have ever had where the lining of your outfit may want to poke out or flip out? When you understitch it, it helps keep everything flat and keep it to the inside. So we're going to basically do that same thing with my pocket. And that's because I personally, I like understitching better than I like top stitching. So I just changed my machine to a zigzag stitch, and I'm just going to zigzag down the length. Maybe I'm not going to zigzag down the length. Down the length of that seam. So I am going to zigzag, and again, soft hands. As you sew, it's a knit. You do not want to stretch it unnecessarily. You could even do a straight stitch here when you're understitching. I just like to do a zigzag with all the body I got. Everything that needs to stretch, or everything that can stretch, I want it to stretch. So I'm just sewing the seam allowance and the elastic to the pocket side of this seam. The only place that you will see the seam is on the inside on the pocket. But who's looking inside your clothes like that? So no one will see it. So again, no seam on the outside. This is my front. And then on the inside, you have this zigzag seam here. And this is going to keep my pocket from like flapping over or, you know, doing whatever it wants to do. You're kind of telling it what to do. I'm going to do the same thing for this side. And again, you can definitely top stitch if that's more of your zhuzh, that's your thing. Definitely do that. Both options are going to do the same thing. It's just a different way to go about it. So same thing, soft, light fingers. You don't want to stretch the fabric. You don't want to pull at it. Let your machine do its thing. All right. Okay, we got my zigzag on the inside. And nice and pretty. No extra stitching on the outside. All right, so next we are going to finish our pocket by adding the pocket bag to the pocket lining. So I have my bag here. We're going to go right sides together on the pocket, and there we go, right sides together, pocket bag, pocket lining. Start in the corner. So this is your front pant, pocket lining. Start in this corner because this is the side that you'll match up. And you'll essentially go around till you meet back up with the pant. And this is the wrong side. So let's try that again. Still starting in the corner. And go around. My curve sides actually match now. Okay. And keep going around till you get to the other corner. And what you're gonna do is sew your pocket bag to your pocket lining, making sure you do not catch your front pant. So you want to make sure you move it all the way out of the way, so you're only sewing the pocket bag and the pocket lining. Now what I'm going to do is move back over to my serger. That way this will be a nice finished seam. So this is it. You're going to sew from here all the way around till you get back here. I'm going to do that on my serger. And then I'm going to fold my pocket together. And this is sometimes what I'll do. If you ever have a sewing project where you're not sure if what you're doing is right, use your clips, clip it all together, pretend it's sewn, and then hold it up. Does it look right? Does it look like how it's supposed to look? So I have my pocket bag all clipped together, and you see my pocket is going to come together. Here's my pants. This is the pocket that you're going to see. And then once this comes here, bam, there's your pocket. So if you're ever at a step where you're not sure if what you're about to sew is going to be right, like flip everything where it needs to be, keep everything clipped, and take a look. Does it look like how it's supposed to look? Does it look like its intended purpose? Do you have any puckers? Is something not matching up correctly? It's a lot easier to fix things when everything is just clipped, or those that may use pins, versus trying to unpick something. That's what you don't want. So I'm going to take my pretend clips out. I got my pocket and my pocket bag. I'm going to pin the other one, and then we'll head over to the serger to where I will sew that up. Hey everyone, I am now on my serger where I am going to be stitching together the pocket bag and the pocket lining, which will create our pocket. And just so you know, I did switch up the fit. It's not you, it was all me. So as we stitch this together, we're going to go ahead and create that pocket, keeping those same tips in mind of soft hands, light hands. You want to not barely touch your fabric, but you don't want to manipulate it too much while you're sewing. And as always, if you don't have a serger, it is not required for this type of it's not required, period, for any sewing. There's always another method that you can do versus serging a project. You can just use your sewing machine using that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And what you can do is you can leave it raw, honestly. Since it's a knit garment, you won't have since it's a knit garment, you won't have to worry about it unraveling. So you can just honestly stitch it with your sewing machine and not really worry about it. Or if you really want some type of finishing edge to it, you can use pinking shears, which are the scissors that give it that zigzag cut. You can use that. You can also, on your sewing machine, look for what's called an overcast stitch, and you can apply that to the seam allowance of your garment. So depending on what it is that I sew will determine what I use for seam finishes. I don't always serge my garments. I don't make to sell. I make for myself. I make for my family. If I do sew for someone else, it's very, very rare. So I don't absolutely need to finish with a serger and make sure I have some of those extra touches. If I was doing this on a sewing machine, I would honestly leave it raw and just keep it moving. I have a lot of garments that are like that, and mainly it comes down to the serger color. Like, I always have black in here at the house for my serger threads, and if it works with black and it's something like this where the seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch, I'm just gonna do the whole thing on the serger. But if the seam allowance was similar to the big 4 where it was like 5/8 of an inch, I probably just do it on a sewing machine and leave the seam allowance blank, and well, not blank, but you know, leave the seam allowance alone, not do anything. Okay, so we have our pocket here. So now what we're gonna do is on the side, we're gonna soft hands place our pocket lining and bag so it matches up with our side seam of the pant. And we're gonna pin it here. See, and when you press everything just lines up real nice. So that's the side seam. Your pocket bag continues your side seam, and then you're gonna do the same thing at the top. You're gonna fold your pocket, so you have your pocket bag, pocket lining, and then the front pant. You're just going to put it all together how it's going to normally go. And then pin it all down. Pin or clip, whatever you prefer. I'm definitely more of clips. And I only use pins if it's like absolutely needed. Definitely clips, especially with kids around. I'm the worst at making sure my pins are clipped, or my pins are picked up from off of the floor. So that's why I just use clips now. If I don't use the pins, except for very specific situations, then I don't have to worry about them being all over the place. So here is my front pant leg, and we have our pocket bag. So our design continues, and then we have our nice pockets. And when you clip everything, it's all nice and flush. So we're going to do that to the other side as well. And then what you're going to do is go to your sewing machine and baste it all together. That way, when we start doing these next steps, it's essentially going to act as one piece. So it's no longer a pocket bag lining, all these different pieces. It is just your front pants pattern. And you don't have to worry about accidentally not, sewing something correctly, because they'll all be one piece. Okay, So now that we are at the sewing machine, you can see I'm going to turn back to a straight stitch, increase the length of that stitch, and then we're going to baste. So you just have to baste on the part where all the layers are coming together. And you want to do that at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance or less, because you want to make sure you're not going to see it once we do the real seam of putting the pant together with our bodice. Or if you do it at, let's say, 1/2 inch, I would advise to make it a different color. That way you can just pull it out once your garment is constructed. I just usually do it within the seam allowance or right on what my seam allowance would be. Okay. And same thing for the other side. Not side, but other pant leg. All right. So now that we have basted those two together, now it's not like flopping all over the place. It is sturdy, it's where it needs to be, and so we are good with our pockets. Now we are going to assemble our pants, and then after that we will hem our pants, and that's going to be it for today. I actually forgot to baste part of this, so let me do that real quick. Y'all don't mind my threads. My threads are my own personal thing. At least until the day I am able to get a machine that will cut them for me. But for right now, I use my threads to help, not necessarily help my machine, but to help me in my machine. All right, and here's the other side. So I'll probably press this pocket a little bit more, just so I can make sure I get that nice flat lay. But we will do that after we put our pants together. So we're gonna move back to the serger, and I have my pants right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the front and pant together at the side seam. So this is the seam where your pocket bag is. You are going to put that, which I have the wrong pant piece. You are going to put that with your pants. And this is upside down. So start at the top. And so at the top, you're only going to be attaching the back piece to your pocket bag until you get to that point where it's pocket bag lining and front pant where we basted. Now what I also do is normally when I get down to where the pocket is, then I'll go from the other side of my pant and start pinning there, just so that I know it's an even consistency and a 1-to-1 ratio on my pant front to my pant back, and I don't accidentally, like stretch this part and then it's too loose later. You definitely don't want that. So keep those soft hands in a 1-to-1 ratio with your pant front and your pant back. And this also helps for if you made any adjustments. So for instance, in my case, I shortened my bodice and I shortened my pant. There have definitely been times where I made some quick on the fly decision, let's say to add 3 inches to the hem, so that way I could do some type of fancy hem, or if it was like a midi length and I wanted it to be maxi, so I would add some length, you know, just on the fly. And that on the fly decision would turn into me getting to this step and being like, whoa, the two don't add up. So this is also another way I check myself. I start at one end, go down a little bit, start at the other end, and then come in the middle to where it should still meet at that 1-to-1 ratio with no stretching on either side. Because you don't want your pant leg to turn. You don't want it to be bunched up. There are a lot of different things that can happen. So you just want to make sure you keep that 1-to-1 ratio when pinning. So I got that pant leg done. I'm going to pin this one. And then we will move over to our serger again. Okay, so we are at our serger. And we're serging together the pant front and the pant back. You know what? That doesn't go over there. There. Okay, so one pant side done. And I'm going to do the other side. That is completed. Now what we are going to do is take our 2 pant legs. We're going to put one inside of the other and stitch our crotch. No, we're not. What we're going to do first is do our inseam. So the inseam is from your crotch down to your hem. We're going to do that first before we do our crotch curve. That would just not work if we tried to do it. Well, you can't sew a crotch curve without a full crotch. So we're going to do the same thing. We are going to 1-to-1 ratio, pinning down the length of our pant. And we're going to put it all the way down. We have our hem, which don't look at mine too much. I messed up just a smidge where I accidentally cut into the bottom of my pant leg, but I'll repair that once my pants are fully assembled. So you'll notice most of the time you'll have more fabric, or at least for me, I won't say most of the time. For me, I'm going to have a lot more fabric in the back. So that's why I have to kind of bring it up a little bit to meet the inseam for my front of the leg. because, you know, it's a little bit more to work with in the back. So, yes. So when you have your inseam done, we are going to serge that, which has only been a few minutes, and we're already almost done with step 2. All right. Now we will actually do what I thought we were going to do a second ago. You're going to take one of your pants leg. You're going to leave it with the wrong size out. So you're going to leave it the way that it is. You're going to take the other pant leg and you're going to turn that one right side out. Got your pant leg all shining and looking good. So what I like to do is I just start at my side seam. That way I already know which way my pant needs to go, and I have my front pant right here on my left side. That way when I'm looking at the wrong side, I'm like, okay, if this side is where my pocket is, that's my front, and you're just gonna shove it in there. Mine isn't really shoving, being difficult. So you're going to match up your side seams. I just match it up just so I know that everything is straight. You're not going to actually sew where the side seam is, but I just like making sure this is my side seam. I have front to front, back to back, because what happens is if you don't, or you try and skip a step, you'll be like me and accidentally sewing a front to a back, or who knows what. There's so many things you can do. So this is definitely an extra step type of thing, but it's just what I do. So I match up at the top, so that way you have, this is my whole front side. My pocket is lined up with my pocket. My side seam is lined up with my side seam. I have both of my side seams going towards the back, and that's just for my own sake, so that I know I'm not accidentally sewing something together wrong. Then I will stitch all this together, because even though it seems very unlikely that you would sew like the front to the back or sew something the wrong way, it's happened. You know, every time you think that something won't happen is when it actually will happen. So you want to take your inseam, and for me, I will take one inseam to the front and one inseam to the back, just so that there's not a lot of bunching. You don't want a lot of bunching and stuff going on down there. So one towards the front, one towards the back, but I make sure that my seams line up. And you can easily do that, like I said before. Put your pin in and then just kind of flip it over real quick. Make sure everything is lined up. It only takes a quick second, and it makes such a big difference. Okay. Then we'll line up the back crotch. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. I know someone had asked earlier when we did our live about adjustments and, you know, how can you make up for, you know, mistakes that you've done in adjustments. So one of the things I do is I look to see how I can make that outfit work even with that wrong adjustment. So for instance, sometimes, and there's been a time or two where I have either overestimated like my back rise. Like, I know I got junk, but sometimes I think what's actually there and in my mind don't be aligning. And if I put too much in my back rise, what I'll do is I will still sew it up like normal, and then just run a gathering stitch down the back rise, and boom, you have ruched pants in the back. Ta-da! If you add more to like a hemline, you can easily cut it off. You could do a cuffed hem, you know, where it's like the hem and then it has like a cuff at the bottom. I've done that before where I've added too much length. Because like I said, I'm only 5'2" on a good day. So if I add too much length, it ain't really nowhere for it to go. Or if you accidentally, if you didn't grade out, for instance, for your waist and your hips, you can always take a smaller seam allowance, or you could do a decorative inset. Is one thing I did when I didn't grade out for my hips on a shirt. And so instead of sewing the side seam all the way down, I stopped it like right above my waist. And then I just did one of those little triangle inserts to the shirt, and I made it a contrast color, and boom, there you go. The great thing about sewing is that we really have pretty much 100% control over, you know, how the garment turns out. Now, that's not to say that I don't trash a garment. There are definitely garments where I just don't want to figure it out, you know, depending on fabric cost, you know, depending on just, you know, how I feel. There have been definitely garments where it just went in the trash. I know that's not eco-friendly. I'm working on that. But there's definitely been garments that have went straight to the trash. Or you can just cut it up and make something else. That's always an option. If you have a skirt that doesn't turn out right, cut it up, make a bra. You got some pants that didn't work out, cut it up and make some underwear. Make a headband. So those are definitely ways you can still salvage any project, even if you make a human error. We're all subject to error. Alright, so this is the last part of assembling our pants. So once we have these assembled, and I only have like this much left, I am actually going to put them on. And I'm going to make sure my half an inch hem is still going to be good for the project. All right, so I will be back. Okay, we have pants. I have not hemmed this yet, so I still have to do my half an inch hem allowance. Now, first thing, if you want to try on your pants, which is what I do all the time, first thing is you want the top to go to your natural waist, because remember, we're putting elastic right here. So when you hold it up to your natural waist, right, there are a few things you want to check for. First thing, center front. Is it on your center front? Are you comfortable? Now, this is going to be gathered, so it's going to come in just a little bit. So don't worry about it being too big, because when we put that elastic, it's going to cinch it all in, okay? But look at your pocket. Is your pocket good? Is it deep? Is it where it needs to be? Are there any holes in it? That sort of thing. Next, you want to look at, make sure I got this all the way up. I don't want to be flashing nobody. Okay. Next, check your side seam. Even with all this gathering that we're going to do, your side seam should still hit at your side seam. So check it, make sure it's going straight up and down when you stand straight up and down. I don't know if you can see the seam. You probably can, because I haven't pressed it yet, so it's probably very noticeable. but put it at your waist. All right, that side seam is right here. It is going down where it needs to go down, and it's straight. That's a good thing. Make sure, like I said, I don't want to be flashing y'all. Same thing. We're going to look in the bit. Okay. Pull it up to where that waist is. And when you pull it up to where the waist is, you want to make sure that you're going to have room to sit down. You're going to have room to do whatever it is. You know, if you want to go marching, if you want to drop it like it's hot or slow or lukewarm, you can do all that. Part of that is also because of the four-way stretch that's in your fabric. So I have mine here, and y'all can see it's to my waist. This is what adding those extra inches helps me with. If I did not add those extra inches, baby, this thing would probably be like way down here. Okay? Add those extra inches to make sure it can get up and over whatever goodness you got back there. Okay? So, we are doing good on our pants. And like I said, don't worry about it being baggy. That's going to come in when we have our elastic. So, all that we have left to do is I am going to take this to the ironing board. I'm going to do my 1/2 inch hem. I'm going to stitch that in place, and that's it. We're done for today, and then y'all come back tomorrow where I'm trying to see if I can get this to stay. There we go. My waist beads take care of it. And we'll come back tomorrow to where we will put our bodice onto our pants. We will do our elastic through. Tomorrow's going to be a very easy day. It's also a catch-up day. So if you, had to take a break, had to step away, like I had to step away earlier, you have tomorrow to kind of catch up, wrap up, that sort of thing, because it's a very, very minimal steps that we're going to do. We're just attaching the bodice to the pants because the pants are already hemmed. Our bodice is already done. It's just putting the two together, or if you're doing the 2-piece option, you just have finishing those two as 2 different pieces. So tomorrow's a very easy breezy day. We'll finish that up, and then on the last day we'll go over a few more ironing things, because like I said before, pressing is the secret to sewing. It is the secret to make sure your stuff doesn't look like a beginner, because even if you're a beginner, don't nobody need to know that but you, because that's your business, as Tabitha would say. So Friday we'll go over ironing, and then we're gonna style, do some different styling tips and tricks and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm gonna take these to the iron, I'll hem it, and I will see you all tomorrow.
Hello, and welcome to day 3 of our sew along for the Fab Clique with the Ellie and Mac Summer Nights Romper pattern. To remind you, we're doing the romper, and on day 1 we set up everything that we needed. On day 2 we worked on our bodice with sleeves, and then today we're going to work on the bottom half, or the pants portion of the romper. Since I'm doing a 2-piece set, I'll be working on pants, and I will also be doing the pocket version, because who doesn't love pockets? So let's see what we need for our pants. You'll need the pocket liner, you'll need the pocket bag, you'll need your yoga band for the pants for the top, and then of course you'll need the back and front pant pieces. Okay, so making sure that you have everything cut out and ready to go, let's get started. Okay, so I've already done one side, and let me show you how to do the other. You're going to lay your front pant piece right side up. If you're doing pockets, you know it's the front because it has this slash line here. So it's front side up, and then I'm going to take my pocket piece, not my pocket bag, but my pocket piece that has the same matching slant, and I'm going to touch them, right sides touching. We're lining up the slanted edge. So we line those up and we pin. I always pin perpendicularly. Oopsie. There we go. And we're focusing on the, sorry, my hands are shaking. We're focusing on lining up the side, not necessarily the top. You'll see in the picture also of the pattern that they don't quite match up on the top. We really want them to be the same on the sides, okay? And then after you've pinned or clipped them together, you'll go ahead and take it over to your trusty serger or sewing machine. And we're going to go ahead and sew these together. Remember, we're doing 1/4 inch seam allowance. And keep your pins far away. Uh-oh, why does that sound weird? There we go. Oh. Somebody accidentally hit those things. There we go. All right. Let's go ahead and do the other side. I had already pinned mine. Line it up at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Uh-oh, it wiggled. I like to double check to make sure it's in the right place so you can make sure you're sewing two things together. There we go. Bye, pin. Got a little bit uneven, so I'm going to make it nice and all right. So now I'm going to take this over to my iron and I'm going to iron it. So I'm going to flip my pocket liner to the wrong side and press it down like this. Okay? See you in a moment. Okay, I actually like to open mine up and press the seam allowance. I find that makes it easier for me when I fold it over. See, now it looks nice and straight. And now I can fold it over and it lays down perfectly for me. So now that they're wrong sides touching, you can see that this is starting to look a little bit like a pocket. And now I iron it together. My iron is set to cotton. It's always good to iron as you go because that makes your seams look nice and professional. Ta-da! And now that we have ironed it down, we are going to take our sewing machine, our coordinating thread, and we're going to top stitch. And that means a nice straight line on top that you'll be able to see. And what this does is this holds it in place nicely so that the inside of the pocket bag doesn't come out of your pants. Alright, so I'm going to take it to my sewing machine here. And make sure I have the right pedal. I always touch the wrong pedal. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and top stitch. Sometimes I lengthen the stitch on this. Just a little bit. Now let's do the other side. Oops. There we go. And now it's time to attach the pocket bag to our pocket. So what you're going to do is you're going to open the liner, this is the liner, from the pants, and then place the pocket bag right sides together. And the pocket bag looks like a curved square. And you're going to place them right sides together. And you'll notice that the curved square of the pocket bag lines up with the curved square of the pocket lining. Okay, so I already did one leg, and now we're going to open up our pants. Let me move this out of the way, it keeps getting caught. Open up, the right side will be on top. See? And we're going to line up our pocket bag with the pants pocket. The curved edge will be touching the curved edge, and these are right sides touching. And we're just actually going to sew along this edge in like a little L. This area and the top will actually be sewed in a little bit later. So right now we're just focused on attaching the lining to the bag. Pin, 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 or clip, clip, clip. Are you team pin or team clip? I like the clips, but then my kids kept taking them and clipping random things together. And so sometimes, because my hands shake a little bit, the clips are hard to do. The pins are hard to do sometimes too, but the clips are even harder. I love it when everything matches up nicely. That means I cut everything correctly. That's not always the case. Sometimes I haven't, cut 2 mirror images. Oh, that's the worst. Especially when you're working with limited fabric and you don't have enough to do another one. Sometimes it just means you have an inside out pocket somewhere. Or you got to get creative. And to be honest, I think that in those times when there's problems, creativity can come out and you really find out some new skills or some new make it work moments. As my husband says, I made him watch a lot of Project Runway. And so sometimes when I'm having a small sewing tantrum, as I call them, after a mistake, he says, I guess you have to make it work. Make it work, designers. Little Tim gun there for you. All right, so now we're going to take it and we're going to sew only where the pins are. See? Okay, a child's calling me, so I'm going to have to pause. And now we're going to baste the pocket to the pants. So what you want to do, I got to show you this part, is you want to pin it so that it looks like this on the front. You can see where you would stick your hand in there. And this is what it looks like on the back. Okay? So on the front, the top part should be lined up here. You'll see our nice top stitching on the top. And you'll see the back of the pocket bag right here. And then you're going to baste right up here where the waist is, and then right here on the side seam. Let's do that together with our sewing machine. So you're going to put it up to a basting stitch, which is the longest stitch up there. Mine goes up to 5. Sorry. And you'll be sewing through 3 layers of fabric up here. My little pins. Here they are. Come out of here. This is to hold it in place while we sew the waistband on and sew it at the side seams. So this is just to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't move when we sew the other pieces together. Oops. All right, and now let's repeat it with the other side. Okay, so now that our pockets are all done, now we're going to start putting the pants together. So first, you'll need one front side, and you're going to want to place it right side up. And then you'll grab one of your back sides, the one that matches. So the long end, there we go. The long end should be touching the other long end. And remember, they're right sides together. So I like to start up at my hip. And you'll see that it's the 2 long edges. This is the long edge of the back. This is the long edge of the side. So this is the hip line. Or not the hip line, like the hip side of the pant, not the inseam, which is the part that's in between your legs. So we pin, 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 pin. Pin them together. And when you get to the pocket part, make sure it's not wrinkled. You want to pin it so it's nice and flat. And this is why we basted it down. Well, I'm thinking about I'm going to turn my thing back down so I don't baste something else on accident. So that the pocket wouldn't wiggle around while we sew it. Oops. You saw my camera. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's my camera, the man behind the curtain. Alright, so I'm still pinning. Pin, pin, pin. And you know, if you're finding that something's not matching up, I would ask myself, did I make any adjustments to any of the patterns? And if you make an adjustment to one piece, you have to check to see what other pieces need adjustments. For example, if you needed to lengthen it in the waist or something, you might need to adjust your pocket bag. If you lengthened it on one leg, on the side, you might need to adjust the other leg as well. So you want to double check those things. You might remember that I made an adjustment to my inseam for the back, to the, not the inseam, the rise. And so that isn't actually the way that I do it with the little pivot. Doesn't impact the length of my pants at all. It just impacts putting some extra fabric in the booty. And so for that reason, I don't actually need to change my front pant parts. So here I am pinning and everything matches up perfectly. Love when that happens. And double checking. Oops, one of my balls fell off of my pins. These are my favorite pins to use. The long ones with the big heads. I've mentioned several times that my hands shake, and that's because I have lupus. And so There are some things that I do to make sewing a little bit easier for me. One of them is using a rotary cutter. That helps with the hand shaking. And another one is really long pins with a big head. That makes them easier for me to grab. Alright, and so now we're going to take this over to my serger. My serger really needs a name. And we're going to serge it at 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will do one last check to make sure it's right sides together. Alright, they are. Here we go. Pins nowhere near my little serger dates, please. Good, there we go. Make sure it's not bunched up. Now sometimes serger doesn't like to eat this chunky part. I hope she's okay. Are you hungry? Don't give me any trouble, please. I come in peace. Oh, she's fine. She's fine. She's fine. Typically sew. Right now I'm sewing in my kitchen. Yesterday I was actually sewing from my parents' kitchen. We went to go shelter in place with them. So that was what I had to do. Why am I missing a leg? Leg? Okay. This is interesting. Okay. I gotta go find my other leg. Be right back. Okay, so after you've sewn down the out seam, the outside hip part of both sides, so you're going to do that and repeat on the other side. What you're going to do is take that same piece and pin down the inseam, right side still together, so you'll pretty much just flip it over and then pin down the inseam. This is the line that goes that touches your inner thighs. Okay, so let's do that together. I've already done one. Let's do another. So I line up the pointy bits. So what we're not doing is we're not doing this top part up here. So on the other side we started at the top and went all the way down to the bottom. We're not going to start right here. We're going to start on the pointy part. Okay, this is the pointy part. This part is actually going to be around our button belly, and this part is the inner part of the leg. Okay, so we put them, they're already right sides together because we just sewed the other side. And the way I showed you, that was actually upside down, but you can get my drift. Let's go to the pointy part, and I like to make sure I pin at the top, at the point. Ouch. And then I also pin at the bottom, at the ankle. And that makes sure everything is nice and lined up. And then I pin in the middle. So you don't want to pin like that because then things move. So I'm trying to pin this accurately. When do you prefer to sew? Are you sewing this at nighttime or at daytime? I'm usually a nighttime sewer, but because I'm filming this, I wanted some good daylight. So I'm sewing it during the day. And my sweet, sweet husband is keeping my womb goblins, or children, occupied right now. Bless his heart. My son is actually playing outside. I can see him as I'm sitting in my kitchen, just walking around the backyard, doing a very good job of being fairly quiet. Okay, so I have this pinned up here, okay? So let me show you what it looks like just so you can double check. If you were looking at your pants, this is the front of the pants, this is the back, and I have pinned the inseam. Okay, that makes sense? And this is the ankle. All right, so now we take it over to our handy dandy serger or sewing machine. Go ahead and sew that with a nice stretch stitch. Which pedal? This pedal. That pin got a little too close for comfort. Making sure you're only getting your seam. Sometimes when I'm sewing with really thin fabrics, you gotta double check to make sure another part of your pants or shirt doesn't kind of wiggle its way over there. Because sometimes things will move and you'll accidentally sew something together that was not supposed to be sewn together. Tiny, tiny little waste just because some of my seams are a little uneven. But not much gets cut off when you're serging with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Where's my inseam? Here we are. So I'm doing the inseam. I'm not starting at the waist. Remember, the waist is free up here. We haven't sewn that yet. I'm just going to start at the inseam. Gonna look like pants in a few minutes. Almost didn't take that one. Alrighty, exciting. So now we have 2 pant legs. My mom hates the word pant. So you're going to turn one pant leg right side out and the other is going to stay wrong side out. Okay? You, Miss Lucky, get to be wrong side out. And you, Miss Lucky, get to be right side out. And so now what you're going to do, so if you'll see, I have the side seam laying down, the side seam that's running down the side of my leg, and the inseam is in the middle here. I hope they can see this. And then I'm going to take this pant leg, which is right side out, and it's going to be right sides touching, so this one is going to snuggle into this other leg. Open it up, you're going to wiggle it on in here, and they're going to snuggle. And the inseam will touch the inseam, and the outseam will touch the other outseam. And then we're going to sew in a U shape. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and match up these inseams. Pin them together right on that seam. And then I'm going to go ahead and match up where the pocket is. Okay, for some reason I got really nervous because I thought I accidentally made 2 of the same leg, but I didn't. It was just a small brain fart. Alright, let us return to what we were doing. Snuggling, that's where we left off. Little pant snuggling here. There's my inseam, and there's that kind of side seam. Open that up and snuggle this on in there. I unpinned it for a second to double check. And right now we're going to sew what will become the crotch seam, kind of. So I'm going to pin these together. This is going to be going up the front part of our crotch. And then this will be going up the back part of our crotch. I'm going to serge this together. Some people also like to do a double seam here, so you might want to sew a stretch stitch and then also serge it, which will reinforce the crotch essentially. It's just a preference. Okay, yes, and now we're going to sew right here. And then we're going to sew in a U. Beautiful. Okay, so now can you see it? We're going to sew in this U. It's the outer U. Okay, all right, let's take it over here to my machine. Take that pin out. That pin is too close for comfort. Where are you? Oh. Here we go. Straighten it a bit as I take it through this. Do people with sergers change their serge thread for every project? I do not. I only have two colors. I got black and I got white. I don't have a lot of space, so sometimes I have to manipulate this little fabric here. Now you can see that we sewed the crotch. And now when you turn them, take one leg out of the other one, you'll see that it looks like pants. Ta-da! Let me tuck my pockets in there. Pants! Alright, and we'll be back tomorrow to finish up the hems and add the band and catch up with what other pieces we need to catch up on. See you then.